Hey guys, it's Ryan with Fluid Health, bringing you another episode of Science Powered Fitness. Today we're going to talk about arthrogenic muscle inhibition. It's a mouthful, and why are we talking about this on a fitness podcast or discourse? But really what we're talking about is a neural feedback derangement. And what that means is that there's a compromise in the nervous system information being received at a joint structure that's disrupting the normal feedback relationships of how the body maintains the force relationships at that joint. So what it means is the body will protect the tissues that it determines are compromised, whether that's swelling or hypersensitivity because of the swelling, or the wearing irregularly from the congruency of the surfaces on the tissues surrounding the joint structure. So a lot of times these tissues are just excessively worn, or the tracking of the joints aren't maintained, and so tissues are being micro-traumaed, and they're constantly getting this inflammation, and so the nerves around that become hypersensitized. So they call that a flexion guarding, typically at the knee, or what's called an arthrogenic muscle inhibition, or an anti-gravity offloaded posture. So that's a reflection in the way that you move or you maintain your joint. So the idea is when the joint, and here's the knee here, if it goes into a terminal extension, so a deep straightening or a deep flexion, you put a lot more pressure on the joint. And that's called intraarticular pressure. Now if there's already wear going on at that joint structure, because the alignment's maybe not set up, maybe your knee valgums or varums, maybe you're getting too much forward glide of your femur on the plateau of the tibia. Could be all sorts of different reasons, but ultimately what that does is it puts a lot of pressure on that connective tissue between the joint, and that can create some hypersensitivity, and then the muscles will splint or guard. And what will happen is a lot of times we'll get our hamstring or our calf muscle, which are both flexors, to become partially engaged. So the muscle becomes tonic, or again, hyper-engaged, to hold the position in a partially flexed position so it doesn't go into a terminal pressure point. And that means that the knee is constantly in a flexed position, and that can change not just the local joint, but again, the adjacent joint structures in a kinetic chain or a linkage of events, which can then offset the entire global movement system for either stance or swing mechanics. Normally it takes you off of stance side mechanics and puts you into swing side. So the joint structures or contractures resemble the joint movement and the muscle recruitment strategy of a swing global movement system pattern or neural pattern. That's how we can start to see imbalances in the systems as they feed back to protect. It's kind of like a listing or getting off of the joint to protect it. So this is a super common thing, as about 1.7 billion people around the world have some type of musculoskeletal injury at some point in the year. The knee joint is one of the most vulnerable joints in the body in terms of history for injury. And a lot of us have compromised and pre-arthritic conditions for our knee, which means these tissues are oftentimes compromised and leading to this feedback, which then creates a change in the neural control strategy, which you're going to need to learn how to control and fix, and then reestablish a neutral relationship, not just locally with the feedback sensory information, but as the body moves as a whole. And again, maybe because of a compensation, you've been learning how to move like that for several decades. So we got to re-educate the entirety of that movement structure and get you back to a neutral position. So again, a very common thing for the knee. We know a lot of people have that, so we want to be aware of these things and know that there is a strategy to help to maintain as much of a neutral physical position as possible, neurally, mechanically, and metabolically. If there is a compromise and the nerves aren't feeding the information, that never comes back, or oftentimes never comes back, so we have to use supplemental work to maintain the neutral position of that joint and the muscles involved. So questions on any of this stuff, guys, remember, reach out to us at admin@fluidhealthandfitness.com. Arthrogenic muscle inhibition, flexion guarding, and anti-gravity offloading, all things we want to learn about and correct for if we indeed are having issues with this. Make sure to reach out if you have questions. Your body's designed to move. Stay in motion. We'll see you soon.